So we've talked about a bunch of stuff already, which is kind of fundamental, like like looking into WebAssembly and other virtualization technologies and idle detection on Linux and so forth. Some other things that are kind of in progress. Our Windows installer is based on really old technology called Install Shield, which is also proprietary. We're starting to look at alternatives to that. Vitali is doing some research into newer open source installer systems. I think that the Linux installer situation also needs to be rethought. This idea of having distro specific packages and people who maintain them has its issues, and it also means that the scheme that we have for Windows and Mac, where with auto attach, where you can download an installer, and when it's finished, you're pre-attached to a particular project or an account manager. That doesn't work in the context of Linux package managers. Let's see. There's some other very basic stuff, like a lot of people complain that when they're watching a movie on the web, let's say, BOINC thinks that their computer is not in use, and it starts using the GPU, and the movie playback glitches. There should be a way that BOINC can figure out whether the user is watching the movie or not, and we should solve that problem. Other kind of basic technology, I think enabling peer-to-peer communication between BOINC clients would open up a lot of possibilities, and that's something we might want to look at. And as always, I think right now the documentation of BOINC, especially for application developers and projects, is, I wouldn't say it's terrible, but it's really hard to get through. It kind of, it's full of all these chunks of XML that people should not even be aware of. And that would be kind of a project to reorganize the documentation and maybe have sort of two levels to it: the simple version and the complex version. Let's see. I wanted to say a little bit about trying to reverse the trends in losing volunteers and lack of adoption by scientists. I encourage people to read the history of BOINC essay that I wrote, because we've already tried a lot of things, and it probably doesn't make sense to try the same things again. I think that kind of reviving BOINC or having a big spurt of growth there's various things that could trigger that. One is if we could form an alliance with a big company like Apple or Microsoft, or maybe Google. We've tried and failed to do that. Another thing that I've tried to do and failed is getting a commitment from a funding agency like National Science Foundation or the European Research Council to kind of support volunteer computing as a long-term source of computing power for science. NSF funded BOINC, but they never did anything to encourage people to use BOINC. And maybe maybe there's some way to get them to do that. Of course, it'd be great if we had a big discovery coming out of BOINC, like continuous gravitational waves, or discovering an ET signal, though that's not going to happen anymore. And of course, another thing is trying to figure out how to do PR, especially in the context of social media. Somehow I think there's an opportunity that that hasn't really been explored yet. The last thing I want to talk about is the sort of recurring question of the project as a whole and its dependence on UC Berkeley and on me. There's a number of aspects to this. One is that BOINC is this really big, complicated system. It's got all these different pieces, and at this point, I'm still the only one who understands big chunks of it, like mostly things related to scheduling. And you know, if we want to fix certain types of bugs or add certain types of features, right now I'm kind of the one who has to do it, and I'm also the one who operates the BOINC website and who kind of manages software development, though Vitaly is taking over a lot of that. I'm getting up in years, and I do a lot of kind of dangerous things like mountain climbing. So we still have to address this issue of what's going to happen to BOINC if something happens to me. A while back, we formed something called the Project Management Committee that had the goal of solving this and kind of shifting my responsibilities to the community. But one by one, the people in the Project Management Committee left BOINC. You know, Kevin Reed did a lot of stuff for many years, but now he's out of the picture, and the Project Management Committee is sort of down to me and Bruce and Matt, and you know, doesn't have the capability to do what we originally thought that it would do. And to be honest, I don't really know if there's a viable solution to this problem, just because the set of people who are seriously involved in BOINC, you know, changes over time, and you know, people come and go, and their agendas are often somewhat different. So I don't have a solution to this issue, and all I can say is that I plan to keep on working on BOINC and doing what I'm doing indefinitely, hopefully for, you know, another decade or so. But if something were to happen to me, then you know, the software is there, and it would be fairly easy to create an alternative BOINC website. All of the source code for the BOINC website, and also for Science United and BOINC Central, all that stuff is in GitHub. So if somebody wanted to make a new version of that, it would be doable. You know, so basically, if I kick the bucket, whoever is around at that point and really cares about BOINC would be able to take over all that stuff. And I'm not sure if you could still call that BOINC. You know, people might have to pick a new name, but that's kind of my viewpoint on what would happen. So that's all I have to say. I want to say that this workshop has been really interesting for me. It's always great to see that you know, there's still a lot of interesting stuff going on, and I really want to thank Matt for making this all happen. If anybody wants to discuss with me any of the things we've talked about, or to discuss new possibilities, or to you know, to ask for help about anything, feel free to contact me by email or whatever. We can set up a call. So anyway, thanks to everybody.
Thanks, David. Any questions for David? Otherwise, it's getting late. We have one very brief agenda item in the kind of positive looking forward sense, as a few words from Francois about the next BOINC workshop. Francois, are you still here?
I am still here. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Matt, and thanks, David, for a great summing up. And it's great to see many people and also new people involved here. The first BOINC workshop happened in 2004 at CERN. And so that's going to be 20 years next year. And so we thought it would be great to come back to Geneva where that happened. Actually, the second and third BOINC workshops were also in Geneva, hosted by the University of Geneva, where I'm based now. And so we don't yet have an exact date or location. We're talking with someone, when I say we, so I talk a lot with Ben Siegel about this, who was around at the beginning of these workshops, seeing if we can use CERN and or the University of Geneva to host it around this time next year. And just to leave on a note that will, I think, respond to, David's concerns about, what lies ahead in the future and what one could do to maybe increase participation, increase the sort of science that could go on. I think one thing that's changed in the last 20 years is there's been a huge rise in interest in citizen science and awareness amongst funding agencies, amongst and others, of the importance of citizen science. Citizen science associations have been created in the US, in Europe, but also now in Africa and Asia. And recently here in Geneva, we helped to birth a new citizen science global partnership, which is a network of citizen science associations. And I think there's a great opportunity to sort of revive interest in BOINC and in volunteer computing through these networks. And a particular goal of this partnership, and the reason why it's being hosted at the University of Geneva, is to talk with one voice from the very sort of dispersed citizen science community to the UN and other international organizations about the importance of citizen science and the usefulness of citizen science for the global sustainable development agenda. So, imagine if you're thinking of coming to Geneva next year, if that it gets you excited, imagine what would you say to the World Health Organization or the World Meteorological Organization or the International Telecommunications Union about, why BOINC is important, why volunteer computing could make a big difference in their agendas, and that might be a starting point for some of the themes that we could weave into the next workshop. Of course, it would be great to have all the technical parts of the workshop that we've been hearing today, really strongly represented in person. We've all been separated by COVID for a few years. It'd be great to meet up with as many people in person as we could at that time. So I won't take any more time, just leave you with that thought of coming back to Geneva. One of the reasons I know that David came multiple times is there's really good hiking around here. We'll take safe routes because we don't want to lose David off a cliff or anything like that. But that will be also, I'm sure, a great fun to see each other and for some of us who have been in this community for a long time. So back to you, Matt.
And the chocolate.
The chocolate, yeah.
So I think that's kind of wraps up our program. I'm excited to meet, as Francois is suggesting, everybody in person next year. I hope everybody will join us. If not, we'll have recordings and all of that. So thanks everybody for participating, especially for the people in Eastern Europe and Europe for staying up late. And Excelsior, we'll see you all next time.